The natural beauty and realistic appearance of Star Citizen's planets almost makes me feel like I should whisper, but we can't, cause this is episode 3 in the Why Play Elite series, where I share with you my very first impressions of Star Citizen. So far, I've taken you along from my early impressions of the flight model in episode 1, followed by a first look at some of the incredible space stations Star Citizen has to offer in episode 2. Before we deep dive into the third episode, I first want to thank you for the incredible reception I myself and all other new citizens have been given while setting their first steps in the verse as fresh players or while migrating from Elite Dangerous, and there have been many. The Star Citizen community has been extremely welcoming, taking every opportunity to explain the basics, offered to tag along and lend out their ships to look at. I'd like to quickly thank the Secret Valentine or Valentines that have anonymously donated money into my player's account. Thank you so very much. I'll be sure to put the credits to good use when it comes to sharing with you my first experiences of some of the incredible ships Star Citizen has to offer. It is time then to take a look at the planets. When I first went into Star Citizen, I had a bit of a wrong expectation, I must admit, in terms of what the universe was going to look like. Where Elite Dangerous takes the proc-gen approach in terms of what a system looks like, randomly generating star attributes, how many planets and moons there are and what they look like, Star Citizen instead sees their universe build up more in the way of classic space games like Freelancer, the X series, and Everspace, where there is a set number of solar systems with handcrafted lore, planets, cities, space stations and more, with very distinct attention to detail and styling. It's not the randomized proc-gen approach, but all the planets and stations were placed exactly where they meant to be. Now personally, I didn't expect this, and while I was initially worried that that might limit the number of things to see, in essence it actually feels like there is much more to see, because you don't just go to a planet and find something random, but instead something that was meant to be there, handcrafted, with a touch of proc-gen to the planet tech, I'm sure. Because there is such attention to detail to both the planets and the cities, things feel unique and built with a purpose. You end up not just skimming over half the planets because there is nothing of interest on them. So Star Citizen plans to launch with a total of 70 systems, each with their own unique lore and locations. Currently, only a single system can be visited. I'd like to think that this system gives us another glimpse of what we can expect for the rest of the game. I've said this before, and I think it really demonstrates the incredible potential of their systems. Over the past weeks, I've been saying the following to pretty much everybody I speak to, but it doesn't hurt to mention it here as well. While there is so much to do already, don't go into Star Citizen expecting completed game features, but instead look at everything there is to see and do for its potential. There is so much still to do and things might not be working, but literally every single thing you see or do gives you the sense of, oh, I see where they're going with this, and leaves you excited and hopeful for the things to come. This video is about planets. Sorry, let's go. The Stanton system. Controlled by the UEE, which is the government, it is home to Hurston, ArcCorp and Microtech, the first companies to own entire planets. Stanton then houses 4 planets, with a total of 12 moons, and boy do they look spectacular. Whether you're looking at them from high orbit, low flight, or on the ground, they always look great. There's no strange popping of LODs or unrealistic colors and terrain features. Planets look amazing whether looked at from a twilight perspective or with the sun right up above causing an absence of shadows. They each have something spectacular, natural, and realistic about them. They quite often look real. The terrain features show realistic shapes and colors that sometimes look just like Earth or Mars or Titan, and sometimes completely alien. quite often you'll see this erosion visible in the terrain near mountains or canyons or maybe somewhere water used to run. It gives you this brief glimpse at the history of its making, a sort of universal footprint left behind. There are sharp ridgelines with natural-looking rock formations running down along the steep walls, and huge rocks to create these beautiful-looking overhangs. Look at how the wind caused the formation of these dunes. Actual ripples in the sand. It tells a story. A lot of the planets house a number of biomes as well, which means that one part might be snow and another woodland. One might be green while another is white. And the point at which these biomes cross over looks really natural. There are no weird sharp borders from one bright color to another that don't seem to make any sense. This is not to say that the planets don't come without issue though. When the ship is landed, you can often spot repeating textures in close proximity that cause long patterns across the ground in a straight line. This is a common issue that you see in lots of games though, and I hope CIG finds a way to mask this a little bit. There's nothing more unsettling than unnatural straight lines when looking at stuff that was supposed to be created by Mother Nature. I do have to say though that while I have been extremely critical of the Planetech in Odyssey for example, I find myself having so much more understanding for the little bad stuff in Star Citizen simply because there are an overwhelmingly amount of impressive things to compensate for it. The planets in Star Citizen come with a variety of atmospheric densities and compositions. Some have almost no atmosphere, while others are so thick that you can barely see anything at all. There's a real sense of climate on these worlds, as the atmospheres all paint a unique picture. A unique color in the sky, and over the horizon different yet again. A very thin atmosphere of 0.01, composed of only O2, sees very fine water droplets accumulating on your player's visor that needs to be manually wiped away to clear the view. And then there's the very thick atmospheres that sees a very thick layer of, I guess, soot on the visor, which makes it really hard to see anything at all. Now, the clouds in this version of Star Citizen are quite old. These are simple 2D planes in the sky, but already look really good and do a lot to set an atmosphere. Version 3.14 though will see their first iteration of volumetric clouds, and I can't wait to fly through these. I'm a little worried for performance, but I'm confident they will nail it. So, what happens when an atmosphere is dense enough to turn a gas to liquid? Well, it accumulates on the ground and makes an ocean. Yep, Star Citizen has oceans. When I saw these from high orbit for the first time, I was thinking to myself, is that really water? Because I wasn't sure if Star Citizen already had water. I went down and saw the waves and I couldn't believe my eyes. Even the shores look really well with the water coming in and out. Just like their cloud system though, they still need work, considering that you can't stand or swim in them and your ship instantly blows up if you touch it. But as I mentioned, it's a first step that shows the potential. No system in Star Citizen is final and complete. More on weather in just a bit, but first I wanted to mention gravity. The planets range from low gravity to gravities of around 1G, which appropriately affect the ship's handling, no surprise. Specifically, the amount of thrust you need to stay airborne. A planet with high G sees me needing almost all of my vertical thrust power to stay airborne, and this is talking about the Aurora. The power needed adds so much to the immersion of feeling like you're really there on the planet holding a ship in the air. It feels like the ship has real mass as it cuts through the air. Now hear this, adding cargo to your ship, or even another player, increases its weight and thus impacts the flight handling, requiring even more power to stay airborne. The little Aurora really struggles hovering on some of the higher G planets, and when I took Osashis on board earlier looking at some caves, I found myself needing almost full vertical power just to stay in a hover. How immersive can you get? In general, I think it's really cool how you can choose not to use vertical thrusters at all, and instead raise your nose about 15 to 20 degrees and let your wings carry you like you would an aeroplane. It shows really well how the Aurora, for example, was not purpose-built to fly in Atmo, because you really need to stay at high speed to do this, but it is really cool to see that the wind can carry you. I've noticed while trying to shoot a lot of this footage that you're seeing that I really struggled to get a sort of lateral strafing shot, because understandably the ship's weaker lateral thrusters in combination with the poor sideways streamlining of the ship are a terrible combination, causing the ship to constantly snap her nose back into the wind. I'm sure you've noticed in some of these shots that there appear to be pretty strong winds and even storms going on. Holy smokes, do they add much to the immersion. The storms change everything. They look and feel different depending on the planet, its atmosphere and its climate. Some of these are really brutal. While flying, they have a significant impact on the ship. They push you about, causing turbulence, and while landing, you struggle to hold still. Don't even think about keeping the ship facing sideways into the wind, because like I mentioned, you'll really struggle to keep your ship steady. You quite naturally find yourself turning to face the wind, so you are in line and can use your rear thrusters to keep you in place while you try to land. Another great thing that you can do is take your ship out of the wind altogether by descending behind a mountain. As soon as you clear the winds, you'll see the wind sort of rushing over the top and peaks of the mountain, skipping you as you feel your ship sort of settle down. Staying out of the wind again changes the aerodynamic flight handling and can seriously help you touch down and keep your ship in place. Then there's getting out on foot, which can be scary, honestly. I've heard about plenty of people, including Roy from Elite Week, getting blown off their feet and into a canyon to their deaths. And that means a respawn. No simple respawn to your ship, but back to the last hab you visited, so you want to avoid that at all costs. What really got to me is the sound of the wind changing depending on how you face it. Look right into the wind and you really hear these small pebbles colliding with your visor. And turn to the side and suddenly the sound muffles, changing frequency altogether. CIG is doing everything they can to get you immersed, and boy, are they succeeding. Next up, I want to talk about caves. I was super excited to hear that Star Citizen doesn't only have overhanging cliffs, but also actual caves. As soon as I heard, I knew I wanted to go check these out, so I asked Osashis to lead the way. I've personally got this weird obsession with cave exploring. Whenever a game has caves, I spend endless time looking for what's around the next corner. What might I find next? Star Citizen certainly did not disappoint. The caves look so good. The rock formations, the fog, the way your torch bounces off the walls and illuminates a bigger area. A lot of the places in these caves are only accessible by crouching or going prone, which adds to the puzzle aspect of finding your way further down. The farthest I managed to get, and this was together with Osash's, was about 400 meters, and I was using my waypoint to my ship to kind of gauge it. And after a bit of back and forth, we stumbled upon this really big room where your torch actually struggles to meet the wall on the other side. It's so cool to see the narrow space open up as you take it all in. Now, the caves we visited were all visited by humans already and had torches laying across the ground, which added to the ambiance of the room, but I hope we'll be able to find even more cave systems that have never been seen before, with more complex structures and stuff like crystals that can be mined and sold for, well, a lot, hopefully. So you might have noticed that I haven't covered cities in this episode. There was just so much to cover on Planet Tech alone that I decided to do individual videos on the major cities instead, which hopefully gives me time to do a unique spotlight for all of them, including Planet Crusader and its Cloud City as well. In conclusion then, Star Citizen planets are beautiful. They cover a wide range of biomes with accompanying weather systems. Some have low gravity and some high, which impact your ship and person perfectly, while the atmospheres see a wide range in density and composition, leaving you with a unique experience each time. Star Citizen planets are so much fun to explore, and thus I ask myself, why play Elite?